welcome back to the Man Cave. Today we're going to do something a little bit different. Got a computer that I'm going to put together for running CAD. I'll go over the parts here in just a second with you, but it's nothing real fancy. But it is my first time trying to build a custom computer, so it's built completely from scratch. Get you turned around and I'll show you the parts that I've got and what I plan on doing. Okay, on this build we're going to be using the AMD 5360 processor. I picked this processor because somebody said it was the right one. I don't know a whole lot about these things. I did do some research. I looked over some guys who was doing some CAD stuff, mainly Fusion 360, and some of the information that I found was, I wanted to look for a higher clock speed, which this one at max boost is 4.2 gigahertz. I think the running clock speed, normal clock speed without overclocking, is 3.6 gigahertz. This is a 6-core, 12-thread processor, which is more than enough to run the Fusion 360 software and such. So that's the processor we chose. I actually was able to pick it up on Amazon. It was new, but it was new old stock, so I picked it up pretty cheap. I'll put a link in the description, or I'll put the information of where I got this stuff from in the description. The motherboard that we're going to be using is the X570S Edge Max Wi-Fi. There was another board recommended for this build when I was kind of looking and going along with the CAD setup, but the other one did not have Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities, and that was one of the things that I wanted because I will use this computer for the Bamboo Labs 3D printer, so it works really good with Wi-Fi. So we've got this. It supports 3200 speed RAM, and of course it's DDR4 sockets. We're going to be using this motherboard, and I am using the Corsair Vengeance RGB Pro. It's two 16 gigabyte sticks, 32 megahertz, 32 gigs total. So we're going to be using that for the RAM. Hard drives, I have chose the 1 terabyte Gen 4, the NVMe hard drive. That's going to be for storing all of our files on, and then I've got 500 gig to use to store the operating system and stuff on. That way, if one goes down, I don't lose everything. I used had some good recommendations for this GPU. This is the GPU we're going to be using, and I'll give you the specs on it right here in just a second. The Sapphire Radeon, well, the number on here is 1126505. If I'm remembering right, it's like a 580, I believe, but I'll put the information again in the link. But I don't need to go crazy because this is just a CAD unit. The processor comes with its own air cooler, but I am going to go with a liquid cooler for the processor, and this is the one that I chose. It is ID Cooling ZoomFlow X240. Just in case we do want to start overclocking the processor on it, if we want to pick up on some speed, this will be a good little unit. From the research that I did, it had really good reviews. So that's the one we're going to run with. Okay, so we're finished up. It's just been a couple of seconds for you guys, but it's been like 3 days for me. I didn't want to bore you with all the details of actually throwing this thing together because, frankly, there are a whole lot of other people out there that are a whole lot better at it than I am. Because I'm going to go over the things that I had challenges with, and hopefully that will help you in the future. Let's power this thing up and Let's see what we got. Okay, as you can see, we've got the MSI X570, I could be off, motherboard. That is the only product that I put in here that was maybe a refurbished, if you want to call it that. I got it through Amazon. It was one of their certified repackaged units. I don't know if somebody unboxed it, didn't like it or what, but anyway, that's the motherboard I'm running. Everything else in here is new. Actually, the video card, if you remember when I first talked about it, I had a different video card that, or a different GPU I was going to run in here. That one was bad. That was a unit from Amazon also. It was used good. I was able to send it back, but it would not power up the monitor at all. So that's why it's taken me a couple days to get all this together. So I ended up going to Best Buy, bought this unit straight off the shelf, and plugged it in, and everything went to working great. Let's go over a few things. This is the ID cooling. Up top here, we are running the AMD 5360 processor behind the cooler here. This is the ID cooling system, the water to air, the water cooler for the processor. The only reason why I decided to run that instead of the air to air cooler that comes with it is I saw where a couple people suggested if I was going to overclock it, that it would be ideal to run an actual liquid cooler on it. So that's why I decided to go that route, just to be on the safe side. Everything went together smooth to start with, and you know, I watched a lot of videos of a lot of people putting you know, these things together, and these guys run through them so fast because, I mean, you know, they've just done one after another after another after another, and you know, it's pretty simple to them. Well, what I did learn, they say build the motherboard on the, you know, on the table and then install it in the case. The only thing that I really found that you could really do to the motherboard that that you want to do on the you know, on the table is put your chip in. Make sure your chip and stuff is like it's supposed to be. Do not put the water cooler in yet, because I put my board in and I put the water cooler in and I had to pull it back out, and there was just a lot of issues. Put your chip in, put your hard drive in. If you're going to run, you know, one of the board mounted, I forgot what they call them now. If you're going to run one of those drives, put it in. Go ahead and mount it, get it in, and I put mine behind where my GPU goes, so that way I didn't have to pull it back out. But if you're going to run more than one, everybody recommended leaving the others out until you got your system installed. So what I did was I put a 500 gig behind in the slot, the MDI slot or whatever it's called, behind the GPU. 500 gig is what's going to hold my operating system and stuff. And after I got everything set up and got everything running, I have came back and put in, I've got two 1 terabyte cards, so this system's got 2.5 terabytes of storage in it. One is for the video stuff, the other is going to be for any CAD stuff that I do. That way, if I lose one drive, I don't lose everything I've got, which I like that. So that's the way I'm gonna run with that. And after that, you really need to go ahead and mount the board in the case. Get the board mounted where you want it. Then the next thing you need to do is put your power supply in. Things that I ran into was I put you know, a bunch of this stuff on, and then I had to take a bunch of it back out because I couldn't reach stuff. Like on this particular board, back up in this back corner here is where you hook up the power for your GPU. I mean, for your CPU. And you can't get to it, so you had to drop I had to drop the cooler down again. So that was like 2 or 3 times I had to drop that sucker down. And there's another plug back in there. It's got to be plugged in. You've got your case plugs that's got to go on the bottom. With your GPU mounted, it's hard to see those because that was one of the issues that I had when I originally put this together. Is I couldn't get it to power up. I couldn't get it to do nothing. So I kind of went home that night, thought things over, came back, and I realized what had happened was down here on the very bottom of the board, you've got some individual pins that plug in. I had one of these one off. So for the power switch, it wasn't doing anything. So I came back the next day, I found that, got that fixed. So, you know, pay attention to where these things plug in. There's a whole lot of other, you know, plugs for fans and all that stuff. You just have to really just kind of be mindful. The other thing is make sure when you're putting your RAM in, you pay attention to what your motherboard book says as far as where your RAM goes, so you can get full use of it. If you stack these side by side, like if you did one here and one here, it's not going to read them like it's supposed to. Again, there's people that can go into a whole lot more detail of why those things don't work the way they're supposed to work. But even after these are mounted, I still have to go back into the BIOS and do a couple of tweaks so I can get my full 32 gigs of RAM out of this. Like I said, put your processor on, put your memory in as far as your hard drive memory. Mount the board. Then go through your whole wiring process. After you get your wiring process done, and you may have to, you know, make sure you get all your if you're going to run a water cooler in it, make sure you get all your peripherals at least wired, and then you can start mounting your water cooler and stuff, because it does become a real pain in the butt trying to go back and hook all this stuff up. And kind of tidy your wires up as you go along. A lot of people, just throw them together and then bunch them up. Well, I had to go back and unplug 90% of the stuff and then replug it back in to get my my wire management on the back side done. It's up and running. I got to go through and do some of the BIOS settings and stuff to get it where I want it. I do have my Windows 11 installed now, so that's what I'll be running on this. And go ahead and finish setting up the rest of my files. But so far, so good. I looked at all the information in the BIOS. My cooler is working like it's supposed to. I got air moving through the case. I'm getting ready to put the glass back on it. Got my 2 monitors up and running, and I'm pretty happy. Hopefully you can try to knock one of these out for yourself. It's definitely a learning experience, because now I know kind of what does what, and it makes more sense, and I love learning that new stuff. I've always been interested in computers themselves since I was little. I'm trying to get back into it now, so I do enjoy these things. I do enjoy the CAD side of stuff. I'm not a gamer. I've said that before. There you go. That's it in a nutshell. As you can see, we've got the system up and running, as we talked about before. I'm going to touch base on a couple things really quick. Windows 11 was really simple to download and install. There's definitely some better tutorials on how to do it than what I can provide you with. Only thing I'm going to run through here real quick is a couple of pieces of software that I've downloaded to monitor and make sure some of my system settings are right, and how to control the RGB lighting on my system. Started off by downloading MSI Center, and what that does is that allows you to, when you activate it and download it, you select your features that you want to download, and one of them is Mystic Light. That's what controls the lighting on the board. The RAM is a little bit different since it's a Corsair. I actually had to download IQ, which is Corsair's lighting control software, and this had to be installed for my MSI Center to pick up my RAM. Now, a couple of things that you can still see in the Corsair setup is it still has some CPU information on it and some temperatures, a minimal amount, but I'm sure there's other settings you can get into. I just wanted it mainly to be able to control my lighting. Now that I've got it installed, the RAM shows up on here, so I can control it from this point and then control the motherboard from here. You can set up different profiles, and there's a whole lot of things you can do in here. And this will also allow you to monitor the hardware of the system, CPU usage, frequency, socket temperature, core temperature, fan, how much it's running, fan speeds, all that. One thing is the RAM how many megahertz you're running in. Mine are 3200 megahertz, but when you initially install RAM, it is only going to show up at, I don't know, 21 something. That's just the default it goes to. So you have to go into your BIOS and tell it that you want to use the 3200 megahertz of RAM that you have, and that will significantly increase your performance. And there's other tweaks and stuff, and there's probably a lot of things here that I have not done that I don't know about. So if you're somebody out there who does know about it and you want to help me with it, drop me a line. We'll do some stuff together, see what we can come up with. But yeah, that's the MSI Center. Now you also can download this Tech Power Up GPU-Z. This goes into a lot of information that is on your graphics card. Tells you what style you have. I mean, it goes into a lot of detail on it, a lot more detail than what I'm familiar with. And this is the only graphics card. If you had two of them in here, it would show you what it's loaded at. But this is all I've got. So that's some really good information. And then there is a CPU ID hardware monitor. This is pretty cool. It lists and shows everything about this CPU. Well, actually about the whole system, all the voltages of the boards, all the sockets, the fan speeds. My processor tracks the temperatures of that. It tracks what megahertz each core is running at. My temperatures of my RAM, all my hard drives, the NVMe drives, tells what the read and write speeds of those are, how they're working. I mean, it goes into a lot of information here. So anyway, those are the three main things. There's definitely lots of other stuff that you can download. There's some third-party applications to control your RGB if you want to do that. I may play around with some of that stuff. I don't know yet, but this is where I'm at right now. I just wanted to get this thing up and running. And I wanted to make sure that all my drives were working. I was able to save videos, all that stuff worked well together. So, yeah, I appreciate you checking out the video. I hope I was able to help somebody with something. I mean, like I said, this is just some of the challenges that I ran into in building my own system. But all in all, I've been really, really pleased with doing it. I'm glad I did it. I would recommend anyone who has any kind of ability and wants to learn anything about computers to give it a shot. Some of the big things is just, make sure all your components work together. There's some great software online to make sure everything works like it's supposed to. And, just roll forward with it. Watch a lot of videos, ask questions. There was a local computer shop here when I had the issue with my graphics card. They even offered, said, hey, yeah, bring it in. We'll just throw another graphics card in it and see if that is what the problem. And, the community's willing to help. And that's great. That's great. They know people want to learn, and that's what we're here for. So if you got any questions, drop me a line. I'll do my best to answer. If I can't, I will definitely point you to somebody who I think can. If you've got some suggestions, if you want to work on some of the stuff with me, maybe run some stress tests on the machine and see how it performs, I'd be interested in doing that. I'd love to see how it does. So like, subscribe, keep your eye out for upcoming videos. We've got a few other things that we got coming down the pipe. So yeah, appreciate you watching, and have a good day.